Thank you all. Great to see you. We have a fairly short agenda today after the lot of work we did last go round. But I wanted to revisit discussion from 2 weeks ago around the August 8th State Housing Board meeting and how it was overlapping with the Denver area, Lakewood, I believe, statewide outreach meeting. So I think I had emailed all of you, kind of the order of events for those statewide outreach meetings, which, look to wrap up around 2:30. And so wanted the board to discuss and decide if the board would like to move the State Housing Board meeting back to 3:00 that day. It will be virtual, although LaDawn has offered her office in Lakewood. That might be a good place for some folks who wanted to gather and kind of attend via Zoom from their conference room. So Anthony, I'll throw it back to you for discussion about that. Certainly we have plenty of time to reschedule the State Housing Board meeting on our calendar.
And enough time to notify anyone who'll be presenting and any public who'd like to attend. So
correct.
Want to make sure we have enough time for notice.
Yep, we do. It's 6 weeks out. So we certainly have, we will repost it on our website well in advance. And then, we generally let presenters know probably about 10 days before the State Housing Board if they're going to be on the agenda.
Great. Thanks for that, Andrew. So any comments or questions from the board members on that topic?
This is Candace, and I plan to attend that outreach meeting there in Lakewood, and I appreciate Dawn offering her office. So if we could move the meeting to 3 p.m., I would appreciate that. But if not, I will probably just have to skip the meeting. Not the outreach meeting. I really want to go to that, but sorry.
Thanks, Candace. Sam?
Thanks, Anthea. I won't be able to make the outreach meeting, but I'm happy to move the meeting to 3:00.
Thanks for that, Sam. Maybe we just take a vote at this point. Or James?
Let's take the vote.
Great. I won't be in attendance of that meeting either, unfortunately, but I am also in favor of moving it to 3. So all those who are in favor of moving it to 3, you can just raise your hand or say aye. Any opposed? Great. That was easy. Thank you all.
Yep. Thank you. We will get it rescheduled on our calendar for the public, as well as make sure we send out reminders to all the board members in advance and the presenters. And I appreciate those who are able to attend the statewide outreach meeting, as the afternoon session of those events is really planned for a lot of public Q&A and just, and a chance for public and our stakeholders within the different regions to voice, things that are happening affordable housing wise, concerns, challenges, opportunities within their community. So it'd be great for you board members to be able to hear that. LaDawn?
Have they announced a location for the outreach meeting yet?
I will look and put it in the chat here in just a moment when we get started.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks.
Great. Is that all, Andrew?
It is. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Well, you are correct in that we have a short meeting today. We have 3 applications to review. So we'll go ahead and start with the TAG project application review. And up first is Mid-Valley, and presenting is Olivia Cook.
Thanks, Anthea. Olivia is actually backpacking in the wild, so I'm stepping in for her. This is Elisa Blakeney. And I am happy to introduce Jason Peasley and his team from the Yampa Valley Housing Authority to speak about their project.
Thank you. We're very excited about this project. As you guys have certainly seen, this is an 84-unit for sale condominium project, which is quite transformational for us as a community. This is the first opportunity for our housing authority to develop for sale product in probably the last 15 years. And so that's really important in our community because real estate values have increased by at least double over the last several years. And what we're experiencing is that supply is severely constrained, and particularly for those kind of missing middle households teachers, nurses, firefighters, policemen, the really critical members of our community that need to live in our community. And so this project is really important to preserving the option for the Housing Authority to maintain community and create opportunities for our local workforce to live in town, especially the folks that we truly need to have living next to the police station or the fire station and within a very close proximity to their jobs. So we really appreciate the support. Your staff has been wonderful to work with. And if you have any questions, happy to answer those.
Great, thank you for that, Jason. Sam?
Thanks. Jason, looks like a really important project. As a recent and often consumer of all the things that Steamboat has to offer, I can attest to. Seems like a very important project for your community. I didn't see anything in there about how you're going to market the units and if there's any sales commissions involved and stuff like that. Could you help us out with that?
Yeah, so we intend to be the transactional broker for these units. And so the Housing Authority will be responsible for marketing those. We're sort of copying the good work of the Eagle County Housing Authority and their Valley Home Store in that model. And so we have a couple things that we're intending to do. First and foremost, we have a housing navigator on staff that's actually doing a bunch of education related to first-time homebuyer education, financial planning, budgeting, all of that, both in English and Spanish, to help kind of boost the capacity of our local community to access this housing and break down some barriers. And then, we will be the employing broker for what is a nonprofit real estate company of the Housing Authority, and we'll be charging essentially a 2% commission, so that we can be lowering that barrier to entry and facilitating the transaction for our buyers, because we have to do the deed restriction qualification. In addition to the transaction, we think it's particularly useful to have that be a one-stop shop. And for subsequent transactions later on, that will also help facilitate the matching buyers and sellers, and facilitating the transaction, which sometimes is quite complicated because of the qualification process that goes along with it. But yeah, we'll be marketing out and doing some pre-sales right around the time we break ground on this deal, so that we can have a full slate of people ready to go to be occupying these units once they're able to be completed in construction and have a CO.
Have you had a conversation with your construction lender about do they require a certain number of units to be pre-sold before you can break ground?
We have not had that conversation as of yet. We're still working through who exactly the construction lender is going to be. And so, to the extent that we will need to do some pre-sales, we're fairly confident that those can be accommodated. We're looking at, units that are hundreds of thousands of dollars below market. And so the process of finding buyers in the marketplace that we're working in is not going to be a difficult one.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Yep.
To piggyback off of that, Jason, I see that there's a demand for 1,400 units. Is that specific to this AMI bracket that you are targeting? And also, do you have any kind of wait list yet?
So that 1,400 unit need is for sort of all AMI brackets within the workforce of Steamboat, and that's fairly inclusive. Probably goes above and beyond the 140% AMI that we're talking about here, because we still in our community have needs above 140% AMI for finding housing that's safe, stable, and affordable. And so that 1,400 units is particularly for Steamboat Springs itself. but is encompassing, the lower income range, middle income range, and then some of those higher middle income ranges, up to almost 200%, is the scope of that demand study. The needs are significantly higher as you move down the income spectrum. We have just a higher population that exists within those bands, but this particular middle band is the group that's, I think, struggling the most because they're outside of the tax credit, capital A affordable housing market, and increasingly so miles away from being able to afford market rate. And so that's why we've been focusing on that for this particular section. As it relates to a wait list, no, we have not started that, primarily because, we want to know we have the deal and the financing to say, when we go out there to make this project happen, we want to be able to manage expectations as best as possible.
Thank you for that, Jason. And James?
Thank you, Jason. James Martinez. This question is for Andrew. Andrew, tag funds, right? I thought they were supposed to be shovel ready, correct? And with this project, they're still looking for a lender. How does that affect the project and the tag funds?
So it was certainly our estimation of the project, the plans and specs, the site control, the zoning prospects, and the projected timeline of the build, that it will be able to be accomplished well within the December 31 of 2026 timeframe. Not having a construction lender, but having, I think, LOIs or term sheets from a construction lender or two did not seem to be a hurdle that held us back in our assessment of this project's readiness to proceed. Certainly there was indication from a construction lender of interest, and that was satisfactory to staff. It may not be the one they choose, and should be kind of within their purview to continue to shop for the better deal, but certainly there was a viable term sheet or LOI from a construction lender in the application. But you're on mute, James.
I'm just asking because I think this is a wonderful project and I don't want it to get pushed aside.
Agreed.
Thank you.
Mr. Garcia?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jason, it's Rick Garcia, Dole Executive Director. Quick question on the condo sale side. What is the plan for mortgage support? Is this going to be something that borrowers would just have to go into the market on their own, or is there some special mortgage assistance that is being organized for this group of condos?
Yeah, we're working with some local lenders and then also with Chaffa on mortgages related to this particular project. Understanding that the access to those mortgages is really critical for the individuals to both afford the property and for us to be confident in the fact that the investment that we're making is going to be taken out by these individuals buying the units. And so, yeah, we're working on a kind of a collaborative of local lenders, and then wrapping in Chaffa from their standpoint, and also utilizing our own down payment assistance program to help with folks being able to afford these units.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you for your time, Jason.
Thank you.
Up next is 8th Street, and standing in for Olivia Cook, is it Elisa Blakeney?
I'm actually going to cover for Olivia on this one. This is Andrew Ashley, and I'm introducing Peter Brixius and Mike Scholl to talk about the 8th Street project in Craig.
Well, good morning, or good afternoon, I guess. I just got in from South Padre Island about 30 minutes ago. So trying to get caught up here. I was almost thinking that I was going to miss this meeting, so I'm really happy to be here. Mike Scholl has prepared to discuss most of the points for this, but this is a great project for the city of Craig. We have completed a number of studies trying to determine what the needs are, but beyond the needs that we currently have, which the housing needs assessment shows 75 units, I think that's dated at this point. A year and a half later, I think it's considerably more based on the influx of population that we've had. But we've also seen that a lot of our rental and low cost housing is virtually substandard, and we saw a lot of issues this past winter with rows failing on apartment units. We thought we were going to have significant depopulation of certain multifamily units, and we had about 18 homes that lost rows this past winter, so it was a significant impact. But this project allows us to bring to market an affordable, we think affordable housing project that will cater to workforce housing opportunities. We initially targeted 140%, and as AMI has kind of shifted, we're looking to target 120% as our cap for the project. The housing available is going to be manufactured homes, as you saw in your recap of the project. But I'd like to introduce Mike Scholl to give you a quick overview of the project, if you would.
Sure. Thanks, Peter. So I just want to bring up that this is actually this will be the first project of the Craig Housing Authority. So I think it's significant in terms of building local capacity to kind of take on some of the housing challenges in this region. And I wanted to build a little bit about what Jason was saying with the work they're doing in Yampa, that Craig is within commuting distance of both Hayden and Steamboat. And so they're seeing a lot of that demand is starting to kind of bleed over into Moffat County, creating some of that demand. I would like to point out that this is a collaborative partnership with the Memorial Regional Hospital. The site actually had been the hospital for the community for about 50 years after World War II, up until about 2 years ago. It had been demolished, abated. There was some issues with asbestos. It was abated and demolished, a clean bill of health, but it had sat vacant. So the nice thing about this site is it has easy access to walkable access to a lot of city services, including childcare and other retail amenities in the community, and access to all the existing kind of parks, roads, street, and other infrastructure network in the community. The project is, as Peter mentioned, it's targeted as a for-sale project at 120% or up to 120% of the AMI. It really fills a need for quality new housing in the community. There's been very little new housing that's been built in the community over the last decade, and certainly very little to the scale. So I think it'll help to fit those needs as well. The community has established site control. We have completed all the zoning. There's a contractor that's starting the pre-construction work right now on the infrastructure. And the goal is to, once we get through this, is to break ground and start moving dirt probably in the middle of July or end of July, and take possession of some of the boxes from Fading West as early as December, but more likely first quarter of next year. So Peter, did I cover that, or were there other things? Is there anything I missed?
Well, it sounds like they might have a few questions on how we're going to market the homes and provide owners loan assistance to the prospective buyers. I think you should maybe touch on that a little bit.
Yeah. So thank you. I had that note and I missed it. My apologies. So we have actually had conversations with Chaffa about working with kind of local lending institutions to kind of create a program to assist households, income qualified households with mortgage assistance. We also are looking at the possibility. I think Olivia alerted us to the fact that there is some grant funding through the Department of Housing that is coming out probably in the fourth quarter to assist with some down payment assistance or other mortgage assistance for the qualified households. The other thing we've done too is we're working with a group, integrated communities here locally to do some outreach to non-English speaking populations. We have material that's in both English and Spanish, and we are distributing that to the community to ensure that that there's good outreach to kind of everyone. And we have started a list, just a preliminary list of kind of interested buyers that the city or the housing authority is holding right now as we move forward. So that's where we are with that at the moment.
You might touch on, Mike, we should also probably touch on the fact that the engineering for the project is virtually complete. And
Yes.
at this point, we're in the process of, we have a letter of intent with a general contractor to develop or to actually construct the project. And we've been kind of holding off to make the final engagement here based on our capital stack, of course, which is critical to the project. This is the first project that the Housing Authority has undertaken, and we think it's an excellent collaborative effort between various jurisdictions throughout the community, as well as support from Department of Housing. We've had significant support from the Department of Local Affairs, and CHAF has been heavily involved in the project as we've tried to work through this. So.
Thank you, Peter. Quick question up front. What is, how much income does someone at 120% AMI in Craig make?
That would be, hold on, I have the spreadsheet open. Affordability. So at 120% AMI and for Moffat County, household of 4, the maximum at 120% is 98,000. For a household of 4, household of 1 is 69,000, and that's at 120%.
Mike, could you also mention to Anthea what the target sale range is, sale price for those properties? Okay.
Yeah, we've been targeting about around 260,000 per unit for the 2 bedrooms. There's 12 2-bedrooms and 8 3-bedroom units. They're comparatively small. I mean, as a for sale product goes, they're around 1,200 square feet for the 2 bedrooms and 1,300 square feet for the 3 bedrooms. The 3 bedrooms we're targeting around 300,000 to 310. We have a little, based on the income eligibility, there's some flexibility to go up a little bit more depending on the household income, but those were the targets based on what we see in the market, and ensuring that we can sell them, sure that we can sell them. But those were the numbers that we were looking at.
Okay, that's helpful. I see 282 for the 2 bedrooms and 344 for 3 bedrooms in the application here. I mean, that the sale price makes sense, and sharing the salary for the AMI is helpful too. And I'm a little stuck on this one mentally, and I think this is more of a question for maybe Andrew or staff. You can help me get unstuck, but creation of 20 units, hard cost per unit or total development cost per unit over $600,000, and then the division funding $137,000 per unit. I see all of the support in this field, so I'm certain there is a good reason for the need being very high. That's why everyone's stepping up here. But I struggle for the Division of Housing putting forth that much money when the AMIs that are being served are not the deeply affordable AMIs. Thank you.
I will just mention number one, so this is a part of the transformational affordable housing program, which, allows for up to 75% of a project's total development costs. So, we're significantly less than 75%. I would also, in the total development costs, there's about $1.6 million in remediation that was covered by Memorial Hospital, as well as about, I think, $2.5 million in infrastructure. If you take those numbers out, it's nearly within our ranges. So we felt pretty good about, providing 20 units of affordable housing and homeownership opportunities up in Craig, where we have not worked very often.
Yeah,
And-
Andrew, thank you. If I could add to that, thank you I was going to bring that up too. The hospital was able to do the abatement and remediation through some other EPA brownfield or grant funding through the hospital prior to sale to the housing authority, but that was included as part of the site cost.
Thanks for that color. That helps. With the tag applications, were there tag applications of the tag applications that you received, were there any that were serving lower AMI levels that you could not support and help? Andrew?
Yep. I will offer that. Yes, we certainly had a wide range of tag applications. There was kind of two prongs to the tag offering. There was a very lowest AMI homelessness response, avenue, where we had up to $105 million of funds to invest. And then there was, kind of the more general affordable housing and home ownership portion of the tag that had approximately $130 million of funds to invest. So we saw applications kind of on both ends of the spectrum. So yes, there were applications at the very lowest income level that did not receive recommendations for funding for various amounts of reason, as well as or various reasons, as well as applications for home ownership or other housing at the higher end of the spectrum that also did not receive recommendations for funding. So I wouldn't think that I wouldn't characterize this as funding of higher AMI home ownership at the expense of lower AMI rental, on a one-for-one basis. Certainly every application had its strengths and weaknesses. And also, certainly we did recommend funding for applications through TAG at the lower end of the AMI spectrum as well.
Sure, we've seen those too. It just does not come across as the most efficient use of our funding. But I do understand rural areas, there are a lot more constraints around the land and it's harder to develop there. So I'd like to hear from the other board members their thoughts on this. LaDon?
So this is outside of my expertise of selling real estate, but I definitely feel that people at this AMI are people who really need a lot of help with home ownership because they're just not able, the numbers aren't able to work for them. So I see no problem with this project and the AMI level that they're targeting.
Great, thanks for that, LaDon. And I would agree, I see no problem at the AMI level. My question is more the total development cost at over $600,000 per unit, if it is the most efficient use of the funding and if it's the best site for development. So LaDon, from your experience, $600,000 per unit in a rural community, I mean, is that typical or does that make sense?
I have no experience in rural communities, but I know that all of the new condos that are being built in the Denver metro, that is right on target with what they're listing at is 600,000. And I'm sure it costs even more to build things in the northwestern part of the state because it's harder to get materials there.
Yeah. And
Thank you, Anthea. Mike and Peter, I talked to you a little bit about this project in the past and I had a couple of questions. The use of manufactured housing versus stick-built housing, have you explored that and what the cost differential was? Because, we've been hearing some kind of cracks in that industry as of late. And, I continue to question the efficiency of that model versus stick built, especially when you're building, 20 units at a time or something like that. Do you have to order them all at once, and do you have a demand for all of them at once, or can you share with us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'll take the first crack at it. And I think that's a really good question, and it's something, Sam, that we've contemplated throughout. One of the biggest issues, I think, particularly in Craig, it's the depth of the contractor pool that is the bigger challenge in terms of going the stick-built route, about being able, the availability of subcontractors, there's only having the availability of general contractors in a community of this size and location to take that on. I mean, I think as an example, I would kind of bring up the previous applicant, which is a 45-minute drive to the east, and with pulling subcontractors and contractors that into projects in Steamboat, which make it really hard for Craig to compete at that level, which made the modular housing approach, I think, solve that question. I think one of the things that we've learned through this experience is that just because you go that route, the modular route, doesn't necessarily you solve the labor problem, but not the cost problem, because there are other things that you need to include, and there's still some need for contracting, which we're working on. But I will tell you, Sam, that we have looked at multiple vendors to see which ones make more sense, what from a cost perspective and from an impact perspective. So we've tried to kind of aggressively shop as well, but we feel like Fading West at this point is the best option for a successful quality project going forward. So Peter, I don't know if did I cover that kind of, or is there anything else?
Sure. I'm just going to say that we have also, prior to the Housing Authority, we worked with Memorial Regional Health and the school district, and we had 3 or 4, about 3 actually solid contractor developers that had proposed beautiful projects, multifamily, some townhomes, that sort of thing, some for sale. We've had every single one of those stick-built projects have fallen out of bed, just frankly, because they're not feasible, and so I think that's another reason we've landed here.
Right. Well, I share Anthea's kind of concern about the cost factor when we look at the size of the units, and I think we saw another project like this not too long ago. Again, using manufactured housing, and I at that time raised the issue similar to what Anthea is raising today about, geez, it seems like so expensive, $500,000-$600,000 for, I think in the previous project it was less than 1,000 square feet, and I do know that the availability of labor in these rural areas is tough, especially when you're competing with places like Steamboat. I think that one of the things that makes this one look kind of expensive is the remediation costs as well. You take those kind of costs out, and it starts feeling a lot better, and so there is value in cleanup, and we got to pay that price sometimes, and so I kind of get the concern that our chair has raised, and I understand the dilemma that you're facing as well.
Mike, Sam, I'm sorry, you cut out for about 30, 40 seconds on this end. Did we lose any of that, or did it just...
I'm sure whatever it wasn't that important.
No,
usually you can cut out 40 seconds of whatever I say, Peter, and you're still pretty good. But
I just wanted to mention again, and I know Mike has already brought it up, there's some significant non-cash expenses that are factored into that total cost that you're looking at, like the demolition that occurred prior to our receipt of the property, and there's quite a few expenses that we have absorbed throughout the project. So, but they're factored into that total per square foot cost at this point.
Any other questions from the board on this or discussion? Is there any opportunity for more density on this site?
It's pretty packed.
Okay.
I mean, it's only, I think, Peter, remind me, is about an acre,
No,
1.55.
1.55.
And so 20, and it's going to be alley loaded. So I mean, we could go vertical, but I think in the context of this neighborhood, it wouldn't make a lot of sense because it's embedded within an established residential, single family residential neighborhood. So I think we tried to do the design within so that it fits within the context of the existing neighborhood, and that it would also provide like I said, easy access, walkable access, really, to a lot of community amenities.
And why did you choose for sale instead of a rental that perhaps served lower income? Is it based on the demand and you're just building what is truly needed?
Peter?
Yeah, certainly, Anthea, certainly demand is,
Oh, I think,
did you say something, Mike?
yeah, you at least on my end, you cut out for a second, so I'm not sure if you're.
Okay. Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah.
All right. Certainly demand is a factor for the for sale unit. We also felt like as the first project for the Housing Authority, it's difficult to come into a project managing properties when our cash flow is limited at this point, and we're hoping to use this opportunity to leapfrog us into the next project. We need to get some housing rotation happening in Craig. Some of these substandard homes will vacate, and we'll bring in developers to start to improve these properties. But also, we need some new stock that's energy efficient, that certainly helps the buyer support the monthly demands of any property owner is going to incur. And so I think overall, I think it was a conscious decision so that we would ensure that we had sufficient revenues and cash flow to continue moving projects forward in Craig.
And if I could add to what Peter was saying, as I mentioned earlier, part of this is the opportunity to build the capacity to take on these projects moving forward. And the city, in partnership with the Housing Authority, already has a second site that's been identified that would be more appropriate for a higher density in multifamily, with multifamily and rentals. But this was like I said, the first project. So I think that as the Housing Authority works through this one, the idea was to kind of leverage this and the experience and build a capacity to do the next project that would include probably a mix of both rental and for sale, with easy access to transit networks and grocery store and other amenities as well. So I think as Peter alluded to, I think that the plan is to move seamlessly, hopefully seamlessly, into the next project that would probably include more vertical, denser and multifamily rentals in the community.
That is the fact.
Well, thank you both for the presentation, for entertaining the questions that we all had. And I know you have a lot of hard work into this. I'm just struggling a little bit with it, but I appreciate all your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and move on to the next. Kiera Sewell, and presenting today is Andrew Atlee.
Thanks, Anthea. So to present Tiara Azul from the city of Alamosa, we've got Heather Brooks and Rachel James. And then from CRHDC, Arturo Alvarado is also on the line to present. So take it away, guys.
Thank you, Andrew. And I just want to thank the board and DOLA staff for this opportunity for the city of Alamosa to work with our partner CRHDC to help address our housing crisis. Rachel and I are presenting out of my hotel room because we're at the Colorado Municipal League. So if you see us kind of tag teaming off of one computer, that is what's going on. And so at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel. But thank you again for this opportunity to hopefully start breaking into that crisis situation.
Hi. So I'll just start with this. This project is the future of Alamosa. So we did a housing assessment starting in 2019. We wrapped it up. We got to do it during the pandemic, which was a really special experience. Wrapped it up in 2021 and showed that even though Alamosa has a population of 9,000 people, that we're 500 units short on housing. We only produce about 40 units a year. We need to produce about 80 just to catch up with our current need and not even meet the future needs. We're experiencing about a 10% growth between the last two censuses. So for a small community, that's a really big deal, especially with limited resources. Also, the AMIs in Alamosa are really different than some of the other projects we've been talking about. The project that we're addressing today goes between 30% and 120% AMI. 30% AMI in Alamosa is $15,000. And 120% AMI is $60,000. So we're talking about an economy of scale that's really different than the rest of the state. And this project, my staff in our planning department has been working with CRHDC for the last 19 months. And they've been committed to our community for 37 years. They've been building our housing in Alamosa for 37 years. They've built about 16% of our total housing stock. This project, they were going to do their self-help home model, their traditional model of USDA houses, as they've done in the past in this community when they purchased this new greenfield lot. And we sat down with them in 2020 and we told them, you know, this is what our housing plan is showing. Can you please help us try to meet our needs? We need houses across the spectrum of the AMI. We need a diversity of housing types. We have this desperate need. Will you help us? And CRHDC really did help us. And they stepped up. They hired professional architects. They hired professional design teams. And they produced a model that, first of all, they're all construction ready. All of these aren't just pretty pictures. These are really what the houses will look like. The architectural specs are done. Our engineering is done. The roads are designed. Stormwater is designed. It's all done. And these houses range from single family. We have something called a mini mansion that's an 8-plex, which just looks like a large home, but it's 8 units. We have 30 plexes. We have townhomes. There's a beautiful park space that doubles as stormwater. It's an incredible community. It's everything we ever hoped for as staff, and we've just kind of thrown our heart and soul into it as a community to support CRHDC. So I'd like to introduce Arturo and let him say something as well. He's the executive director of CRHDC and a great partner for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Rachel, and thank you to the board for the opportunity to be able to address the board and talk about Tierra Azul. I mean, Rachel really hit it on the head, all the work we've put into this. But you know, Tierra Azul does offer critical housing solutions in the city of Alamosa in response to the housing demand that is present and growing. And as she mentioned, we're proud to be in the community. We have a permanent office in Alamosa for over 37 years. A housing counseling team. We do provide home buyer education to the community. We've built multifamily and single family across the state, as well as in the San Luis Valley and Alamosa. So, you know, we're just really proud to be part of this collaboration and partnership, and we're able to come together with the city to develop this vision you see for Tierra Azul. And we just really think, you know, with the support of the TAG grants application and funding with DOH, that this will become a reality, and as Rachel said, that the funding will make Tierra Azul a reality for the future of Alamosa. And so I just appreciate the opportunity, and happy to answer any questions, but we're happy to be here.
Thank you, Heather, Arturo, and Arturo for that presentation. Any questions from the board? Dan.
Thank you, Anthea. Looks like another great project. I'm just wondering about the scale of it for the size of the community. You indicated that the community needs about 500 plus housing units currently. This project represents about 85% of that demand. Does that worry anybody?
This is 137 units is this current application. So this infrastructure is the first 137 units. So this development, although it's fully planned as a master planned community, it's 6 phases that will be developed as the market allows. But because we are 500 units behind, we're pretty confident that we could build it all within the next couple of years and it would be absorbed.
So is the, really then the application is for a smaller number of units, not for the 406?
It is phase 1 and 2 for 137 units. But the deployment of the first phases of infrastructure, because this is an infrastructure only application, this does help us develop the other 4 phases of this development.
Okay. And then by the regulations, when does that have to be completed? Is just the infrastructure part have to be completed in that period of time then?
I'll step in and answer that. Sam, that is correct. That's why we've worked with this applicant and a few others as well to see if we can ensure things are properly phased so that the project infrastructure, for phases 1 and 2 can and will be completed by the expiration date of the ARPA money, 12/31 of 26.
Okay. And when we're saying infrastructure, what do we mean by that in this project?
Water, sewer, and roads.
And then what do you think is the real build out of the full 406?
The total cost? I might have
Timeline.
Oh, so they're already under planned unit development. So the horizon of the end of, they have specific deadlines set forth. They're going through their final development plan now with our city council, but they have a 25-year horizon to finish the entire project. And that's held, they have money in bond and the city holds them to those deadlines.
So we could be building infrastructure in the near future for units that won't come online for maybe 20 years.
This first phase of infrastructure will completely serve the first 137 units.
And no, I understand the first phase. I'm asking about the full build out, and because the infrastructure is to support not only the first phases, but the full build out, correct?
So obviously some of the infrastructure for here is just for the specific first 2 phases, such as roads type of situation. Some of the main lines from infrastructure are going to be sized to fit the entire build out. Obviously, when we're looking at lift stations and water mains and those types of things, but then the other underground utilities then would be specific to phase 1 and phase 2. So it's being designed in totality to make sure that the size of the infrastructure fits. And then some of the infrastructure, such as streets, would only be for this phase, curbs only for this phase, the laterals only for this phase, those types of situations. So it's a combination. And I'm sorry, that wasn't clear.
Okay. Thank you.
Rick Garcia?
Everyone, while you're there, how are you? Nice to see you. Sorry I missed you. Quick question. Is this neighborhood or the geography of this project, is this considered South Alamosa?
Yes, it is in the southern part. It's contiguous to some recently constructed neighborhoods, as well as a new park and our elementary school complex. So it's right there with other residential areas in South Alamosa.
Okay. And then just quickly, recently, I recall our energy impact program funding some water sewer lift station area. Is this related? Are those lift stations related to supporting this project in the long run?
Yes, so one of the lift stations, which does have a lot of the other lift stations feed into it, so that's why it was so critical. This would also be feeding into that lift station. So that upgrade definitely allows for this residential development consistent with both our comprehensive plan and housing plan.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions for staff? Sam, do you have any questions that you want to direct to staff on this project or others? Before we get into the voting phase?
No, no, I guess it's really more of a comment is that, you know, these are the nature of these of this funding and the types of programs that we're looking at. I think we're trying to fund visions, and my guess is that what we're going to end up with something between a compromise between visions and real reality once all this kind of all comes together. And I think that's okay, you know, for this types of funding. You know, all of us would do things a little bit differently if it were our project, I guess. You know me, I'm very opinionated about a lot of things, and so, but you know, I think they all represent some really strong visions for communities, and I wish them well, and I'll vote for approval.
Okay, thanks for that, Sam. Thank you for your good opinions. Let's go ahead and open up the voting for all three of the projects. Does anyone need to recuse themselves from Mid-Valley, 8th Street, or Tierra Azul? And do we have a quorum? We do, right?
Yes, there's a quorum.
Okay. Could I ask, Andrew, could I vote on 8th Street subject to taking a look at the market study? Is that something that I could do?
Sure. Well, expand it. Let me know what you mean by subject to.
Just really want to take a look at the demand at what's being built at that cost is truly what's being needed right now. There was no market demand analysis in the write-up. And I just feel like that might give me the comfort that I need to approve it. I don't want to hold up the voting for it. I'm a little torn on it. Nancy? You're on mute, Nancy.
Because I'm using my phone and my computer. Okay. Anyway, it's been one of those days. I don't know if holding this up to the next meeting would put a hardship on the developer or on the progress of this development. But as you were talking, I also had some same kinds of questions, but just for that development, it just seemed a little high. So if we could put it off for 2 weeks and get more information, that might be helpful. And then you would feel more comfortable and we could move on.
Nancy, do you have about 15 minutes now? I wonder if we vote on Mid-Valley and Tierra Azul, and then any questions that we have on 8th Street, we can talk with staff after everyone is off the line and see if we could get the clarity we need and then vote.
Sure.
I actually think you should do the first, vote on those two. And I don't think we and you should talk offline outside of the public.
Okay.
But I do, if you decide you'd like to hold this project over, we can represent the packet to you in 2 weeks with the information or your expanded market demand section if you like. I think that's probably the best way to move forward.
Okay, let's start with Mid Valley and Tierra Azul. I'd like to ask for a vote of approval on those two projects.
Aye.
Make a motion to
A
approve.
motion? Thank you, Sam.
I'll
Sorry.
second it. This is Candace.
Thank you, Candace. All those in favor signify by aye or hand raised.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, those two pass. And on 8th Street is, Nancy and I have some concerns. Do we have a quorum outside of Nancy and I? Because we could just take it for a vote if everyone else is in approval of it at this point.
You know, I think, did Mike Scholl, the applicant, representative, have another comment to make?
I just wanted to make a comment related to the timing, in both the timing and the housing assessment. So it was not necessarily, I didn't see it included in the packet, but there was a housing assessment that was done in 2021 through funding from DOLA that identified the housing demand, particularly for quality new housing. So I can quote it, but there was, there's definitely fit within the framework, and was submitted as part of the application. The other issue that was brought up in terms of timing, I'm a little, and I don't know if Peter is still on, but we're a little kind of nervous because we have there's a limited construction season in Craig due to weather, and we're really anxious to kind of get the horizontal work started with the general contractor, and so much of it's dependent upon the funding lining up. And I think if we have to wait another 2 weeks, we've got we had a hard time finding a general contractor that was qualified. And I'm afraid that if we delay for too much, we're gonna put the whole project in some peril. So I don't know that 2 weeks is, but I do have some concerns because with that, with the additional delay.
Well, the general contractor has already indicated that finding subcontractors this late in the season is going to get harder and harder each week that we delay. And of course, that's a fact just based on the capacity of subcontractors around this area. But the timeline is critical not only for that, but also for some of our other funding sources, like the IHOI grant and that sort of thing. So we finished a lot of the soil geotech work at the site. We're trying to get prep for the grading and just waiting on a final decision here.
I gotta ask maybe this is a staff question. Let me first ask Peter and Mike, when do you intend to break ground if you were funded, if this group gave you the award today? When do you intend to break ground based on your agreement with your contractor?
Well, we've reached the end of a 6-week letter of intent. They've already been working on our behalf. We'd like to move that to final approval of their contract to sign them on as a general contractor in the next couple of weeks.
And what are you able to do in the absence of actually getting money from this organization in the next several months? Are you able to get is your lender able to give you a construction loan based just on this letter of award?
We have a line of credit from the city of $2 million. That's in your application. We also have funding for the horizontal improvement that we would start immediately and work to complete that before the end of construction season this year. And in terms of line of credit or other funding, we have some other funding sources like the HUD grant. We haven't actually applied to this project if necessary, but at that point.
Right. And the reason I bring this up is because there is a substantial delay between the time our group makes an award and the time you're actually able to draw money.
Yes.
And if the TAG funds, and I'm not familiar with the regulations on the TAG fund, So Andrew, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but if they're similar to like the HDG funds, you can't use our funds to reimburse things that you've already spent money on. And so if you start construction today, we can't pay, you can't reimburse yourselves from these funds. And so that's why I'm wondering how critical the timing really is, and how much we can improve, how much we can help with that timing. Does everyone understand my question?
I do, Sam, but I'll defer to Andrew, but I
Mike.
want to respond.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
Andrew, did you have a question, or do you?
No, I guess I will further, speak alongside Sam, and that I think that as staff, there's probably no material difference in the time you have a final fully executed contract, whether or not there's an award today or 2 weeks from now. The applicant can certainly start working on their pre-contracting document gathering while staff prepares, a revised report for the board to vote on 2 weeks from now. Just, so from a practical standpoint, those two things might be able to run concurrently is is what I'm offering.
Yeah, and no, I appreciate that. I think, Sam, to answer your question, I think or be a little more granular. There is funding right now to start to fund the infrastructure piece.
Okay.
It's not, the challenge is that we're building an infrastructure for a very specific product. And the funding that we're relying on from this grant will go to pay for the boxes, the final. We're negotiating the timing of I mean, it's a whole nother kind of thing we're working through on a separate track, but the timing of the payments for the boxes. And so the challenge that we're having is, how do we, if we can't, we don't want to commit to get so far down the design if we don't have the funding to pay for the boxes that fit the structure, the infrastructure that we're building.
Right.
And so that it's not the fact that we expect to get the money tomorrow. It's just it's more from kind of looking at it from a risk profile for the housing authority, and entering into a contract, a $3 million contract with a general contractor for the infrastructure, and not having the commitment in hand to pay for the boxes going forward. And with the kind of compressed construction season, I think we're feeling a lot of pressure. And I would add to that, and I know this is not necessarily material, but I would just offer it for consideration, is the first project of the Craig Housing Authority. And, it's a challenge to understand. And Sam, I know you've been through this 1,000 times, but understanding the ebb and flow of a development project, understanding the risk, and getting accustomed to that within a development project. And I think Craig is a community, this is very new to them as a community. In the housing authorities, or excuse me, the city council has taken a lot of ownership, and they've really stepped forward in terms of creating the housing authority, allowing for the line of credit, to really recognizing and supporting affordable housing. And I think every time there's a delay like this, there's a crack a little bit. And so that's my fear. I think that's and I don't a subject to kind of Peter, but I think that's where we are right now and so that's why I'm just a little anxious with any further delays.
Sure, I appreciate that, and understanding that timing is critical here. I'm leaning towards maybe just asking for a vote on this deal and seeing where we stand, because we do have numerous board members here, and we might have enough of a quorum to move it forward.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve this application for Craig Housing.
Thank you, Candace.
I second Ladon.
Thank you, Ladon. All those in favor signified by aye.
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 Any opposed? So does that, and Nancy, what was your vote on that? I didn't hear either.
All right, yeah, I'll support it. Staff seems to think it's a good idea, and it seems to be very needed in that area. So expenses are going up, and I'll go ahead and support it.
Wonderful. It passes.
Thank you. Thank you to the committee.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
You got it. All right. Mr. Garcia, did you have a comment you wanted to add?
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I was going to offer some additional information, but to advance the vote, but that's fine. Looks like you took care of it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. We will reconvene in a couple of weeks. Appreciate all the discussion here.
Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have
Bye.
a great week.
Thank you.
Mm.